All right, hello, we are back.
Hey.
We are here to talk about spoilers. So hopefully you have seen Stove League or Hot Stove League. Kind of has two names depending on what is, I think, who's streaming it. But we're going to get into spoilers, so we're going to get into a little bit more of the details of the show. So if you've seen it, we'd love to have you come and join this conversation with us as we talk about it and think about it more deeply.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about in our spoiler-free review, we talked about the themes that we thought were important that we saw in the show. So we're going to go through the themes a little bit more now in more detail and just talk about what are like the specific things that brought, what are actual things that happened in the show that brought out the themes that we were talking about. So the first thing we really were talking about was the theme of integrity and perseverance. So I was kind of mentioning, like, and this sounds crazy, but I was thinking of the movie High Noon, which is a black and white movie that my family has always loved. Also the movie Ghost in the Darkness with Val Kilmer, which is a really good movie.
Yeah.
But the themes of those movies is this guy who comes in to do a job, okay, whether, like, in High Noon he's the sheriff, and in Ghost in the Darkness he's the guy who's building the bridge. Comes in to do this job, and out of cowardice, fear, greed, all the people around him are trying to dissuade him in a way from doing it. And yet he is, in his courage and integrity and determination, he gets the job done no matter what. And I would say that even though this is not about lions or about people shooting you up, it's still the same theme that we see. It's this guy, Bok Sung-soo, comes in to become the manager, and he has all these people who want him to fail, and yet he is persistent in accomplishing what he came there to do.
Yeah. No, it's a huge, obviously it's a huge theme in the show. And it's interesting because, when you're, when you're in a profession, in professional sports, winning is everything. Winning is everything, and you do anything you can to win. It's a very pragmatic, perspective on life. Do whatever I have to do to win. Whatever works, do that to win. And you see in professional sports all the time. Teams will cover the truth about maybe a certain player, about maybe paying somebody behind the scenes, maybe a college player, money in order for them to come to their college and university. There's little to no integrity in professional sports anymore, and I hate to say that because I love professional sports, but it's true. If we knew everything that was going on behind the scenes of a professional sports, we would just say, wow,
the romance,
the whole everyone is cheating. Everyone is cheating. You look at baseball, professional baseball. Baseball players took steroids for many years, especially during the 90s when I was watching it. You had the whole home run battle between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, and then Barry Bonds. They were all on steroids. They were cheating. But then there was other players that were cheating. So nothing was on the level. Nothing was done with integrity. And when you have something so competitive as professional sports, to have integrity and do what the right thing to do is, to make the right choices, no matter if you win or lose. That's something that's very rare, and that's what's very refreshing about General Bok in this story. It's like,
So basically, the reason, well, if you've seen it, but the reason he is up against all of this is because we have this, the president of the Club of the Dreams, President Kwan, very interesting character as well. We will get into. Very interesting character. At first, he seems very one-dimensional, and you're like, this is that guy, and then he just completely, his character goes deep, and you're like, wow.
Like, I didn't realize all that.
He became one of my favorites. Not gonna lie, at the end. But so the President Kwan, he's basically being set up by his uncle, who owns this huge conglomerate called Jaesong Group. That also owns a lot of business.
They're like the parent group of the Dreams, if that makes sense.
They own it all. They're the money behind it all. Their plan is they want to move on. They want to do something bigger and better to them than having a baseball team.
Yeah,
They have a lot of the baseball team's not that important to them.
Right.
So
and the baseball team's losing; they're not making a lot
yeah,
of money, so they think
they're like never
they
winning.
feel like it's a sunk asset. So what they
Yeah.
want to do is they want to dump the team. So the owner or the CEO of the team, this man called Quan, his whole backstory and his whole motivation is to disband this team. So he brought
And he's getting
in,
that pressure from high up,
Yeah.
from his uncle actually,
Yeah.
which makes it like more.
Yeah. Are we getting off the subject of integrity though, or are we still?
Well,
on
no,
that?
but I'm just
Yeah,
letting
yeah.
them know like why is this hard for Beck? Because Beck
Yeah.
is going up against basically a an ownership and a president who want
Yes.
the team to be disbanded by the
Yeah.
end. So they're actually trying to sabotage it. So the whole time he's fighting against that.
Yeah.
Which is very, very difficult. And then so we talked about integrity. We'll get into more things on that, but the money and status is not really fulfilling. I
Yeah.
thought was a good theme.
Mm-hmm.
I think you see that a lot in Quan, President Quan, because he lives his life to get that money and status. Because if you know his backstory, it goes into his backstory, and his father wasn't like his brother who became this huge owner of a conglomerate, but he was just kind of a simple guy who worked for the dreams and loved the baseball team. And Quan wasn't like okay with living a simple life. He wanted to be like his uncle, and so he basically like bowed down to his uncle and pleaded with him for money to go to this college, and he kind of like just degraded himself and kind of sold himself in a way. You could say like sold himself out, sold his soul,
Yeah.
in order to kind of get money and power and wealth. And in the end, we see this guy is not fulfilled by that, and we ultimately see like a redemption for him.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So that's in there.
Yeah, for sure. And just to go back on integrity just for a second, it's very refreshing to see kind of a character that has that integrity, and you want to root for characters like that. That make the good decision no matter what the cost, and you're really rooting for him, and you're really rooting for the team to do well, even though the CEO and the ownership of the team wants them to fail. That's what really makes this an interesting drama. Is that he's battling
from within.
He's battling all these battles from within, from different players. He has to make difficult decisions, yet while maintaining integrity and being honest. And so, obviously very, very encouraging, very insightful. We love that part of the story. Obviously, money and status is ultimately not fulfilling. You see that in the like you said, you see that in the ownership.
And you see that in the GM too, because he had all these jobs before, and he said he had failed because in the past he had been intimidated by people when they sort of told him, well, you have to do this, otherwise you're going to be fired, or we're going to take your money away or whatever. And this time he was like, I'm not going to be dissuaded by those things. I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to do what I can for this team, for this company. Really, it's more than just a team. I mean, it's all the management, the people who work in the management team.
Yeah, but I do want to point out one of the major themes is perseverance. Perseverance is huge because you see this with almost all of the characters, how they persevere through a difficulty, through maybe a past decision that they regret in their life. There's one player who was a great pitcher in Korea, and the Korean government they have a law that you have to serve in the military for 2 years at least, and this player he wanted to dodge that mandate, so he ended up moving to America to play baseball. So they kind of saw him really as kind of like a traitor. They saw this player as a traitor. He went to go play baseball in America. He ended up getting hurt, and meanwhile his family's struggling. He's not making much money there in America, and so general manager Bach, he goes to America, and he finds this pitcher who, what do they call that? He abdicated. not abdicated. He left.
Yeah.
Kind of, when you leave the country, I'm trying to think of the word.
Yeah, his citizenship was changed.
Yeah.
So he had a new name and everything. So it was pretty drastic.
So
Yeah.
so this player, he got hurt, and his family's really struggling, and Bach's going there to bring him back, to Korea to play for the Dreams, because he knows he still has potential. And so Bach believes in him, and he kind of instills, he wants to encourage him. And so he comes back to Korea, but now he has to face the backlash of all of the Korean press that said, "Hey, this man's a traitor. Why did you leave when you had to? Why did you dodge your military service and stuff like that?" And what he says basically is, "I'm going to serve the 2 years, and then I'm going to play." And he kind of has like this redemption, but you see, the sorrow, the grief, the turmoil that he brought him and his family. The regret that he had for doing that, but also he kind of persevered. He ended up playing for the Dreams, and he ended up, returning back to his country. So that was kind of one way in which a character perseveres. But you see,
and
this,
also you kind of just brought out too another thing that we were talking about, which was the theme of owning up to your mistakes.
Yeah.
You see that a lot because you see it with the character that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Where he genuinely was like, I was in the wrong, and he owned up to his mistakes. And you see that with the
star player.
Yeah, the star player Lim Dong-yu, who was very mature. I mean, he basically took Beck out in an alleyway and had him beat up.
Yeah.
Like,
he
really
thrashed
immature.
his car. He broke his windows. Basically threatened him because Bach wanted to trade him.
Yeah, he kind of brings the drama early, you know, that guy.
Yeah.
So, but he leaves the team, and he's almost like you see him as a villain of the show. Yeah. And I think that's what's so interesting about this show is characters who you think are just going to be straight up villains for the whole show make a turn.
Yeah.
And like become allies and people that you care about, and that's one of the characters.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about him more because I want to talk about him more later when we talk about characters and we talk about other things. But Lim Dong-yu, who was their star player, he owns up to his wrongdoing, which was actually he was secretly gambling on the games, and he gets caught. Well, he actually goes and owns up to it. Yeah. Because his friend kind of pushes him to that, and so that was awesome. I love that theme, and we even see Mr. Beck owning up to his own issues as well, with his brother. The fact that he pushed his brother, and that's why his brother has this injury. And then I love it when he was talking to the guy who works in, I think it was like the marketing department, something like that, in the journalism department, who gets in trouble because of him. And he realizes, like, okay, it's good that I'm standing up, and I'm pushing back against, this bad management and everything. But at the same time, it does make it hard for my employees. And sometimes I don't think about that. I just think about myself pushing back and everything. I don't think about my employees. And he kind of talks to his employee, and he owns up to that and says, like, I'm sorry, I didn't really think about how, like, all this pushback would affect you guys and stuff. Yeah. So I love that there was a lot of that. People just owning up, like, to their mistakes, but like Grant was saying, persevering through it, like not just despairing, but moving on. Yeah.
Everyone likes a good redemption story, you know, and like a lot of these characters are redeemed in some way, and kind of just speaks to real life, and even with us, nobody's perfect, and we've all made mistakes, we've all had regrets in our past, but there's always room, to be redeemed, and obviously the ultimate redeemer is the Lord Jesus Christ, and you always have a second chance when you give your life to Him, and He renews you, and you learn from your mistakes, of course, but you don't live with the guilt of your mistakes, because Christ has removed your guilt, through the cross, and so. It's a kind of a good reminder. You just kind of want to preach the gospel to these people. Hey, listen, you have redemption in this, but you have ultimate redemption in Christ, and
part of the Christian life is persevering through. Yes. So it's like you fall, and we fall. Like I think about Pilgrim's Progress. We were just watching it, the cartoon version, which is pretty good. We were watching that on Sunday with our daughters, and like Christian, he fails sometimes really terribly, goes out of the way or does the wrong thing, but it's constantly like grabbing hold of the gospel again and pushing forward and leaving that in the past because God has forgiven it, and we're now pushing forward to seek to obey him better. And obviously this is not it's not a Christian story, but you can see that theme that's there that I think is an uplifting theme, the theme of like coming face to face with your wrongs, not like trying to pretend like they didn't happen or sidestep, come face to face with them, but also learn how to keep going, keep moving forward, So that was really good.
Life goes on.
Yeah, and forgiveness too, because being able to accept those people back, like Lim Dong-yu coming back and them accepting him. Also, don't judge people too quickly, because we see in this show a lot of people who seem a certain way at the beginning of the show. We get to see the other side of the story, and I think for Beck, it's a lot of it's through his eyes. So he kind of makes these quick judgments about people, and he comes to see, like, even I think about, remember the girl who was in marketing, the lady who was in marketing. He like tells her off. Remember?
Yeah.
And then
because she's being lazy.
She was being lazy, yes.
But meanwhile, she like what he didn't know is that woman was like responsible for, the Dreams, success and fandom, and she brought a lot of, great things to the Dreams organization that he didn't even know about. So.
Right, and of course Lisa Young, the girl, she kind of brings that to him. She's such a good, she's a good like helper to him in a lot of ways.
Don't judge a book by its cover. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, so those are themes, and we'll probably talk more about them as we talk about characters because it all interweaves together. But let's talk a little bit about favorite characters. So, who was your favorite character and why?
Favorite character for me was Quan, who was the owner and CEO of the Dreams, and he, played by Oh Jung-se. And he was very sneaky because at first you just looked at him as, okay, that's the villain, and he's going to be the antagonist throughout the whole story, which pretty much he was. But there was more to it that met the eye for him and his character. And at first he was just kind of, in the first few episodes, you're like, okay, well, he's the evil character. They're not going to really give him too much. He's just going to kind of stay like that. But number one, I loved his performance. I thought him and Beck going back and forth were some of the best scenes.
Good, yes.
Some of the best scenes of the entire show.
The tension was real.
Yeah. It was. And
the dialogue was good. And I loved how the dialogue was like they would say. Like if you read the script, like what they were saying was not what they were saying. Like it was all like very under.
Yeah, it was very subliminal. Like their whole conversations were, had different intentions in mind, because don't forget, right? He wanted to disband the team, so he hired this person. He hired this GM with no experience in baseball, and he saw that his experiences in the past were where he went to different organizations. This man Bak Soo-sung, and he won, and then the team disbanded. So he's like, okay, so let me hire this man, and then we'll win or whatever, but our team will disband in the end, and that's what he wants from Bak. But Bak has different intentions. He wants to win the championship, and then he wants to continue, and he wants the Dreams to be an organizational success. So they're at odds with one another throughout the entire show. But Quan does a really good job, and the reason why I love this character is because, at first he's against Bak. He's this character that is trying to undermine him in every which way. He's making trades behind Bak's back. He's trying to do different things to make him stumble, exploit different players, maybe for rumored drug use, which were never true. But he ends up seeing, what's that? See that?
No, the
what's that? What?
The arm wrestle.
Oh, the arm
crazy.
wrestle. I actually missed the arm wrestle. That's one of the episodes that I missed.
Oh no.
Yeah. I missed the arm wrestle. But anyway.
Top scene.
Yeah. So I got to go look back and watch that. But yeah, so he was a great character, and he did have a certain sort of redemption at the end, because what you don't know in the very beginning, what you find out is that his father was the GM of the team, a while back, and he ended up failing. And so he's kind of, he loves his father. His father's very sick now, and so he's trying to live, for his father's honor. And so there's a situation where the team is about to get disbanded, and Quan, looks at this old baseball that his father gave him when he was really young, when he loved the Dreams, and so he ends up quitting the Joseon ownership, which was which was basically telling him to dump the team. And he helps Bach redeem the team and keep the Dreams going and not disband them.
Yeah,
so it's like he's got a great character arc. He's a great the actor who plays him does a great job.
Yeah.
He's very layered. He's not just black and white. He's not black. He just, all right, this is an evil character and that's it. He's just multi-layered. He does a great job, and I really enjoy
another
his
example of
performance.
how good Korean dramas are with character development, and how I feel like and they characters oftentimes don't stay the way they initially seem to be. He was a surprise because he was interesting. He's a really good actor too.
Yep. All right, favorite character for you?
My favorite. Okay, so starting off, I thought it was gonna be. I thought it was gonna be the girl, because I really like the girl a lot.
I like the girl too, but they didn't give her enough.
They didn't give her, I think, enough.
Her.
Exactly. So it ended up being Bak Sung-soo, the general manager.
Surprise.
Yeah. Nam Kung Min. I'm a new fan now. Very interesting actor, and a little bit older actor for a male lead in a Korean drama. He's actually 45 as of now, so I'm guessing he was around 40 when he did the show, which I think is nice, because he adds like a gravitas to his character that I feel like that I feel like you don't see in a lot of male leads in Korean dramas. Maybe in Ri Jong-hyuk, he's a little bit older, but he was just very interesting, and you had this feeling like this guy has lived for a little bit. He's not like in his 30s and 20s. Yeah. He's lived for a little bit, and so he's kind of like got this, and you always felt like there was some kind of a backstory behind him, and he was a little bit melancholy. So I was always wondering, what was his deal? And that was a bit, especially at the beginning, that was intriguing to me. Like, who is this guy, and why is he the way he is? Why does he care so much about defying all these people? Yeah. And he was like very mysterious, and I loved how you kind of see it through the eyes of the girl, because she's always kind of like trying to figure him out, and some of her expressions are hilarious. Like when he'll just do these like he's kind of comes across as antisocial at first, I would say. So they might be talking to him, and he has such a hard time like just saying like thank you or I really appreciate you guys, and her facial expressions are funny because it's like how you feel watching it. But
the one thing I love about his character is that at first he's just basically cut and dry character. He's the GM of this team, and he has to make hard decisions, difficult decisions. You can imagine being a GM. So he's not really getting too emotionally involved with the people that he works with. And that's one of the great things about the show. It's not just the baseball players and the manager, but it's the behind the scenes. It's the scouting department. It's the operations group.
You really get to know all
all the little different facets that you take for granted, in different baseball teams behind the scenes. But he doesn't get emotionally involved with these people. But as the show goes on, he begins to really form some relationships with some of the characters and some of the people that work there, and he kind of learns a few things about himself that you just like. It's not just about being just cold and making the right decisions and doing this and that, but he really it's about relationships, and he learns a lot about himself. So I think
and I think as a true leader, he's a true leader because he takes ownership for like the mistakes that he makes, in order to try to help them. But anyways, so he's my favorite, and one of the great things about his character is eventually around halfway, maybe a little more than halfway through, they finally start to tell you a little bit of his backstory, and like how he felt so responsible for his brother's injury, his brother who's in a wheelchair, and
Yeah.
I think the scene it was so interesting because the actor who played him was so, like you were saying, was kind of stoic for a lot of the show, and then you get to see a little bit of what's going on underneath. And so it was very powerful. Even though he still played it in an understated way, he never went like over dramatic.
Yeah.
It was powerful, like just the little expressions were powerful because it was so understated. He wasn't like always that guy, who was emotional. So, so it showing him, emotional because of what happened with his brother, and his brother trying to help him to see that everybody's moved on from that, and he's fine, his parents are fine, but he's still blaming himself. Yeah. And it's like getting into, his own psychology and needing to move on from that, like we said before. And then also the baby scene.
Oh yeah.
The baby scene. The baby scene's probably like the most
surprising, shocking
scene, but so good. Probably the most emotional scene in a certain way, I would say.
Yeah.
Where that his wife had
miscarriage.
It was more of like a stillbirth, I think.
A stillbirth, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it helps you to understand a little bit of like, why, what's going on behind the scenes. And then it's like he's getting over it. It's like he's learning to move past it. And one of the things that helps him, like, is he goes to his friend's house, or he goes to the pitcher that he helps and hires, and they have a new baby, and he goes to hold the baby, and he just like breaks down holding the baby.
Yeah.
And it's such a great scene.
Yeah.
It's like, wow,
It's like I didn't know that guy could cry out like that.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of like a robot throughout the show, and all of a sudden he just pours out and just starts weeping over this child that, and then the family's looking at him like, all right, wow, this guy.
He's such an epic character, though.
Yeah.
He's like, his lines are great. Like, he just is like one-upping everybody around him all the time. It's so great.
Yeah. He's like the ultimate. He's kind of like a cold genius or a genius that, he's just very straight to the point.
One of my favorite lines is when he's talking to Quan, and Quan is saying, "Oh, I'm sure you're gonna hide the fact that some of the players are doing drugs, aren't you? Because you want the team to succeed." And he's just like, "I told you I would try to win a championship, but I didn't say I would sell my soul for one."
Yeah.
And it's like, right, because the other guy, he would. So, anyways, it was good. So, anyways, that's my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite moments. You got some favorite moments?
I mean, there's so many moments. Probably like, probably my favorite scenes are during spring training when they go down and they play another team called the Vikings.
That's great.
Yeah.
They do show a game.
They actually show the game, and it, the way they shoot the game is, very realistic, and I love it because you're kind of emotionally attached to these players. So like when they're playing, now you're rooting for them to succeed, and the whole conflict between the star player that Bach traded to the Vikings. So you see him playing against the player that he traded for, which is this pitcher. And so like I felt like the baseball games during the spring training really kind of brought out a lot of different themes and story arcs and the whole thing. And they did a really good job of making you emotionally invested in these players before a lot of these sports dramas, because they don't have a lot of time to lay down backstories about the players. All of a sudden they're playing games and you're supposed to be emotionally invested in these characters.
Right, and they have to use like in a lot of sports dramas, it's like they have to use music and slow-mos and all these things to get you into it, because you're not actually like you said, you don't know like the players that well, and you're not that emotionally. With this one, they just like showed the game pretty much straight up. Yeah. And it felt like you were watching, and it didn't feel unrealistic. Like you watch these sports dramas, it's like I never went to a game and it felt like that. Like, this person's running, someone.
Right.
It just felt like the way it feels when you're really actually watching a game of people that you really care about, and you're like, come on, you can do it, you know.
Yeah.
And you're feeling like the emotion of the guys just, and it's not a game where there's tons of people watching. It's just the managers basically.
Right.
They're watching it.
So like even when you're watching professional sports and you're watching spring training games, you're saying, oh well, there's not really a whole lot of going on. Not a lot of people watch spring training anyway. But the GM and for the people behind the scenes doing the scouting and doing the trades and free agents, like they're bought in. This is the time where they can kind of evaluate the players and where the state of the team is. And so I just found that very interesting, and kind of gives you a little background and a little bit of insight of how baseball teams work, and I enjoyed that part. And like I said, the baseball, it was very realistic. It wasn't just kind of shot, someone takes a half swing and hits a 500-foot home run. It was very realistic, and they did a good job with those scenes. So that was one of my favorite moments, just watching the team play.
That was a highlight. It was like a good little highlight kind of in the middle.
Yeah. They're like, oh, actually baseball.
They play the Vikings. And of course, it's the drama of Kong Dookie playing Lim Young, I like all the times that especially two instances, great moments where the girl like kind of tries to kind of rescue the guy. So there's no romance, obviously, in the there's no romance in the drama, but I think there could be.
Yeah.
Like there's almost like there could be. I don't want to say there is, but I could so see the main lead and the main girl coming together if there was a season 2, which there are rumors. But anyways, she definitely cares about him. And she I think she sees him as someone who's trying to protect everybody, and she feels like nobody's protecting him.
Yeah.
But I love the part where one of the most epic scenes is when they're trying to get this their catcher to re-sign.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult position because the president makes them cut everybody's salary by 30%. So they feel humiliated even trying to ask these people to sign for 30% less of their salary, but they're like, what else can we do? And of course these guys are irate and mad, but it's not the GM's fault. Like, he has to do it because of the president. Yeah. So they go to like this nightclub or whatever to find this guy. And even just seeing like Mr. Beck walking through a nightclub is hilarious.
Yeah.
He does not fit being there. He's just like so awkward. So they come in and he's sitting there, and he starts pouring alcohol on Beck's knee because he's like, you want to know what it feels like for my knees every day, because
playing with injuries.
Yeah, playing with injuries. Well, Beck is just like sitting there, like completely shocked, and the girl just gets up and throws the glass, and she gets so upset. She's like, how, and that was a great moment. I love that moment. I also love this moment where he's talking to Lim Du-yong, or Du-gyu. I'm probably saying it wrong.
On the bridge?
No, whenever Beck is talking to him, he's trying to... Well, no, this is before that. But anyways, he's talking to him, I think it's during the spring training.
Yeah.
And he actually is like starting to see things a little bit from his perspective, and starting to be kind of humbled about the way he kind of just brushed that player aside.
Yeah.
But earlier on, like we said before, earlier on in the show, say his name right, Lim Dong-gyu, like hired guys to beat Beck up in an alleyway. So this guy's like, he's crazy. He like bashed his car and everything. So I think it's hilarious because they're talking, having this conversation, and then Lisa Young just runs up after the conversation with a rock, and he's like, "What are you doing?" Like she was gonna protect him from getting beaten up or whatever. That was a funny part too.
Yeah.
Those were funny parts to me.
Yeah. Good moments there.
What are some more good moments for you?
I mean, any scene pretty much with I like the final scene between Kwon and Beck.
Yes.
In like Kwon's office.
Drinking coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah,
like,
that was great.
there's like a common respect they have for one another, but they really don't like one another because they've just kind of been at odds, and Quan, after Beck finds another organization, finds an IT company that actually buys the dreams, so that they can continue on as a franchise and not be disbanded. And of course, Quan put Beck, he hired Beck to do this. In the end, Quan wanted to see the team be sustained.
Yeah.
And so they were
Changed his mind.
allies together. So when Beck makes the deal with this IT company, and there's a lot of drama that goes into it. And that's one of my favorite moments too, when Beck gives his pitch to the IT company's CEO. The CEO says, okay, why should I buy this franchise? I don't know anything about baseball. And he just goes into this whole spiel about like this organization and the whole thing, which is very cool. But the last scene between Quan and Beck in the office, Quan says, don't think you're better than me just because, you got this deal done, and there's still this rivalry, when he says that there's
this
still,
isn't because you're more competent than me, so you know.
Yeah, just so you know, this is not because you're more competent than me. So it was kind of like a very cool moment, and they're just kind of sitting there drinking.
They're just
coffee,
like quietly drinking coffee.
It's kind of over.
These guys, they had great chemistry as far as like just being like enemies. It was good.
Yeah. So you gotta have a protagonist and antagonist that can play off each other really well, and these two characters were just really great. So at the end, it was kind of bittersweet. You're like, oh, this is the last scene we're gonna see both of these guys in, and they ended up being allies, so it was cool. So
I like the friendship between the girl and the younger guy, Han Jae-hee.
Who?
Han Jae-hee. That was a sweet friendship. It was kind of cool. They had a cool dynamic. At first, we were like, "What's happening here? Like, is there going to be a romance? Does he like her or whatever?"
Yeah.
But I thought it was cool how they never went there. It was just a really good friendship from the very beginning. Like when he first came in, she was upset. She judged him when he first came in to be interviewed for the job.
Yeah.
Because she thought he had so much money, and he thought he was just going to get in because of his family, his wealth and stuff, and she was.
Yeah.
But then she got upset, and then he came back later and was able to get in based on his own efforts.
Yeah.
And their friendship was really cool throughout the whole drama, I thought.
Very cool. All right. So, what is that? Random thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay. Some. All right. Things that I appreciated. I'm going to say a couple of things about the show that I appreciated that were maybe a little bit different than your quote unquote sports drama. Number one, I think that it wasn't your cliche sports drama where the leader of the show kind of gets everybody emotionally kind of charged, and then they just go out and charge whether it's a coach or whoever. These players weren't kind of swayed by emotion, to become a winning championship team. This show shows you the GM. He won with logic, and he won with making rational choices and decisions, and that's realistic. That's how a real baseball team does it, and a GM has to do it. It wasn't, just this, oh, let's go, we're going to go out and we're going to win the games, and yeah. No, he had to make decisions about trading players, cutting players, signing free agents, and making the right choices. And he does it with logic and reason. And one of the examples of this is he trades the best player on his team, the best hitter on this team, the 4-hitter. He trades him. And he sees that the data shows that this player fades at the end of the season, and that really he's more of a detriment to the team than a benefit. And they already have good hitters. They need a pitcher. They need a starting pitcher. So they trade for one of the best pitchers. They trade him for one of the best pitchers in the league. And so you see here that he wins with logic. He wins with good choices, good decisions. It's just kind of very refreshing. It's like Moneyball. It's not like your common sports drama where we're just gonna rah rah, and we're gonna have, we're gonna do this and do that, and we're gonna have a championship team. No, he had to make, hard choices, difficult choices. He had to go through conflict. Obviously battling his own CEO. So I appreciate that about the show, and I think it's very true to heart to baseball and a GM's responsibility. So very cool.
Yeah, and it opened your eyes. Yeah, and opened your eyes to the fact that a team is like a baseball team like that is not just the players on the field.
Yeah.
But that a lot of what made the team good was the general manager who didn't even know how to play baseball at all, had never played it.
Yeah.
And all of the management team who put forth their skills, whether it be mathematical skills or marketing skills, in order to find the right player or to decide who they should have in this position. There were so many things that went into making the team a winning team. So it was like if they won, it wasn't just the players winning, it was like the whole group of people won together. And that was like the camaraderie of it was really
And
cool.
it's not just the players, but it's also the scouting department. He had to clean out the scouting department because there were certain people that were corrupt, that were, paying different players, and they were drafting different players that shouldn't have been drafted, injured players, because they were getting money. And so, the general manager had to make these decisions and clear out some of these people, these bad eggs. So I don't know, just very cool, very realistic. They didn't get bogged down with the romance stuff. They just kept it with baseball, and it was refreshing. Hey, you can watch a Korean drama without the romance, without a romance in between the characters, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think if there was a romance, and I mean I love romance, but I do think if there was romance in it, it would have taken away from the story. Because if you're gonna have a romance, you can't do it like half baked. Like you have to put some effort into it.
Yeah.
And you can't put enough effort to make a good romance, and you take away from the main story. So I think it's better to not have like a half baked romance on the side, but just focus on the story itself. Yeah. And so I thought they did a good job with that.
Yeah, I think one thing I would probably change about the show is actually the ending, and it was a little anticlimactic because the dreams end up going to the championship game, and you never get to see the game played. You hear it on the radio. The general manager's listening to it, but you never get to see them play, and that was just a kind of a downer. For me, that was a downer because you wanted the tension to see.
I was excited to see the game.
Yeah,
and then
that's it. I mean, usually, always with sports dramas, you see, the last game and how they ended up. They end up winning the championship, obviously, but you don't get to see it, and you don't have to. You don't get to share that moment with, the rest of the characters. So I think that was a missed opportunity. Now, whether or not they were hindered by budget or COVID, I'm not sure. But we didn't get to see that climactic end, and I think that's why I probably would rate it a little bit lower than some shows, just because it didn't end. It didn't have that finish, that finish that you wanted to see. You would agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that was a good ending, but I wanted to see the game. Yeah. So that was definitely a downer, but I guess they had to do it. It was just. Circumstances. I don't know.
Yeah.
The circumstances put them in that position.
Who knows?
Yeah. Some other cool parts of the story is I loved when you find out that Beck gives his own salary to the players so that they can have more money, because he's so humiliated after having to take 30% of their salary, and then you realize he actually gives up his own salary. That's how much he cared about getting this thing done. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Is that it? You wanna? I mean, that's the thing about this show. You can touch on so many different, moments and scenes and stuff like that. I hope we've given you kind of enough where, it whets your appetite to go and watch it. Unfortunately, it's not on Netflix, so you'd have to get a membership at Koikawa, which is about like $6 or $7 to watch it. but it's definitely worth a watch. And like I said, it's 16 episodes, so plenty of content. It's not your cliche sports drama. It's real, and it's definitely beneficial, and I like it. So what would you rate it? Let's end with the rankings. How many stars out of 10?
So I gave My Country a 9 out of 10. Because I just loved it so much. It actually had a lot of flaws, though, I would say, as a drama.
Yeah.
Well, it had a good bit of flaws that you could point out. This one doesn't have much flaws. I would say that there's certain aspects of this drama that I could easily forget. Like, I could move on from this drama and forget a lot of it. And I think part of that is because a lot of what happens in it is dialogue, and it's like inner workings of a company. So it's harder for you to remember that. Like, I even took a lot of notes for this review just so I could remember my favorite moments that really hit me and everything. But with other dramas like Crash Landing on You or My Country, you can remember, like, okay, when this person got shot or stabbed or this person died. It's like all these kind of big life or death things. And because this show doesn't have life or death, I feel like it's a little bit more of like you move on and forget. So I wouldn't say it was like such a huge effect where I'm just gonna be thinking about it for like a long time or anything like that. But I thought it was really, really good, and I really enjoyed like living in the world with all these characters, and I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss like, okay, I want to know what's going on with Beck and all the players and everything. It's like you enjoy the characters and you enjoy being in the world with them, and you care about them, and you like knowing what's going on. So I'm gonna miss that. So I would rate it. I think I'm gonna say, I don't know. It's hard because I would say as a production, just as straight up as a production, I would give it 9 out of 10. I think personally for me, it's probably gonna be more like an 8.5 out of 10, just as far as like how my emotions were involved and if I'll remember it.
Yeah. I would say 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
I would say 8 out of 10. Just I would probably give it a little bit lower marks just because of the ending that they didn't land. They didn't land it as well as I wanted to. A couple of, obviously, some of the things that were created, to draw out drama maybe weren't so realistic. Certain things about, some of the players and some of those aspects, just to create drama. But I mean, overall, it's a great show, and good characters, draws you in emotionally, great dialogue, great acting.
Don't write it off.
And the pacing's good. There's not a lot of stale moments. It keeps it fresh, throughout. Decent soundtrack. I would say, we haven't mentioned the soundtrack at all, but I thought the soundtrack actually was, a bit better than I would have anticipated. And
it gets you it gets you emotionally in ways that you would not expect. I mean, it's one of the things that that's so good about it is it's very fresh. The idea is a fresh idea. Like, nobody writes a drama about like baseball management, like that's such a fresh idea, and so it kind of brings you into this new world, and the emotion that like you get really emotional but it comes out of nowhere. Like, you didn't expect to feel that emotional. Like, for me, one really emotional part was like when Lim Dong-yu, who was, fired from or sent away from the Dreams to another team early on. He was the one who was just crazy, like, beat up Beck in an alleyway, that guy. But he eventually comes back to him and brings him back into the fold. And when he comes back into the clubhouse, it's like this awkward moment, and all the guys just like jump on him and just like welcome him back in. And I felt so emotional in that moment. Like, there were little moments like that would just hit you out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of like the beauties of this show.
Yeah.
That it will, when we talk about it, it might sound very dry, but if you go and watch it, it hits you.
Yeah.
In ways you would have never like expected.
Yeah. They did a good job of laying out, building on the characters of the show, building on the players and the coaches and the relationships and all of that stuff. So then when the games were played, then you emotionally kind of bought in. and that's what a good sports drama does, and that's what a lot of sports dramas don't do today. It's just like, all right, I'm supposed to be all in with this team and with this player and stuff, and it's kind of half-hearted, and you're not emotionally bought in. But this show, obviously, because it has 16 episodes, it was able to do that. They didn't just go right into games, but they went into character development, relationships, and that's why you buy in, and that's why it's kind of memorable, and that's why it's a good show. So.
Would you watch it again?
I would. I'm not immediately, but I think
Yeah.
if you're watching, obviously, if you're watching Korean dramas and you just watched, maybe an historical one, or maybe like, a romance one, this is like a good one after one of those.
Agree.
Like kind of refreshing. Like, all right, this is something different. This is not your romance with guy and girl, and
Yeah.
They're in love for
It's something
16
different. It's
episodes and stuff
refreshing.
like-
It's very refreshing. And we just came off My Country, which, if you've seen that one, is very dramatic,
Yeah.
and it's sword fighting, and it's set back in the day. And this one was just like a refreshing change. It really was. And we love My Country, not saying we didn't, but it was just nice to move on to something completely different. And it was really, really good.
Yeah.
So, really glad we stuck with it, and hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And thank you for joining us in our conversation
Yeah.
about it.
All right. Perfect. Later, guys.